Hi, it's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service, here today with Neptune conjuncts, part 2. So we're going to be looking at May. We're going to highlight particularly, I'm going to say, the last 2 weeks of May. So just like I did for April, I'm going to pick it up with May. Before I begin, I want to say thank you for watching the video. I want to thank all of my subscribers, most particularly, for helping me to build this small channel. With that said, if you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll consider becoming one. And if you would, like, share, comment. I'd love to hear from you. So, we're picking up with these conjunctions. I've already done one video earlier this week. Again, I'm going to have to take it easy. I'm still recuperating. Better, but not there yet. So with that said, we're going to be looking at 2 days. We're going to be looking at the 18th of May and the 24th of May, 2022. And these are just 2 charts from the period that really help us to pinpoint the actual lineup of planets. The planets we're going to discuss this month for May would be Mars and Moon. So we're only going to stick with 2 this time. We had 4. Well, it was 4 altogether. This time we're only going to look at the 3. But there's a really interesting dynamic at play because Mars is so very different than Neptune. You could almost say they're opposites. Think of Mars as an ego. Actually, I always think of it as an ego without a brain. Okay? So, one moment here. Sorry about that, barking dogs and all. It's very noisy here. So, you're looking at 2 different energies. You're looking at an energy where Mars, it's like an ego without a brain sometimes, but it's very ego, the brain, the Mars energy. It's very much an ego. Neptune is egoless. It's about other people more than it's about yourself, or at least it should be. Neptune's that thing that'll pull the rug out from under your ego, though. So it makes the whole thing that's happening in May, to me, about as exciting as what we had happen in April, actually what we're living right now. So it's going to be a very different energy when Mars gets there. And it's going to ask us to look at different things. And the same thing is going to come true, like, when the moon plays on it, okay? It's going to be very different, because we don't have Venus, and we don't have Jupiter. And here we go again with Mars is a very different energy than the moon. And the Mars is a very different energy than Neptune. Notice that I didn't really say that Neptune and the moon were real different. No, there's some similarities between those two. I mean, if you think about it, when the moon does conjunct Neptune, which it does every month, it's a wonderful time for anyone who's working on intuitive abilities or people who are wanting to manifest more work within their own spirit. So meditation practices, things like this, that's what we should be working on. And it really helps us because every month the moon comes to Neptune and we have those aspects that we can turn to, particularly while Neptune's been in the journey of Pisces, where it rolls the sign. So it's really a good time to take advantage of building up your own spirituality. If you're someone who tends to be intuitive, look to the last couple of weeks of May as a time to really build on your own intuition, your own psychic ability. Just don't do it for your ego. Because if you do, it's going to turn out badly. That's the only thing. If you're working on your own intuition, if you're working on meditation skills, then you're doing it to better the world around you, or just to give yourself, maybe a heads up, but not necessarily to get ahead in any way. Then you're using the energy for its highest purpose. But what we have to be careful of is not using that energy to its highest good. Any forms of deception, especially with Mars there, anything that you're doing that's sneaky, that's trying to get ahead, that is any way deceptive, is not likely to work out very well. So know that as we head into this work. So I'm going to continue talking about this, but let's look at the chart of the 18th. On the 18th, the moon is coming, but it's not there yet, because we are talking about the latter degrees of Pisces. Okay, so we're talking about 23, 24, 25 degrees. And the moon's going to get there, and it's going to be there. Oh, I know what it is. On the 18th is when Mars gets there. On the 24th is when the moon gets there. So, starting with when the Mars gets there, because it's going to be there a little bit longer. None of this lasts very long, a couple weeks, but you do want to take advantage of it. For example, somebody who's working on their third eye, their abilities, their intuition, you want to work on it around the 18th and moving forward. If you want to build up a meditation practice or get back into a better meditation practice around the 18th, really good stuff. Around the 18th, start thinking about heading inwards. And I mean inwards in terms of yourself. So let's look at what that chart looks like. We're going to pull first the 18th, and then I'll pull up the 24th. And we can see how this is all coming into being. So this is what the 18th looks like. And this is when, and you can see it. Actually, it's actually the 16th or the 17th. And I did want to correct myself. I kept the chart up for the 18th, but if you'll notice, Mars is already slipping past Neptune. So I believe it actually starts a little bit sooner than that. And I'm going to go back in and pull that up. So let's look at that. Okay, so here I went 2 days ahead, and you can see that I'm actually, now I am in front of, but at 2357, I'm sorry, or 2457 and 2343. So they're already in connection by the 16th. So you can feel this coming in May. I'd start really looking for it, maybe even the 13th or the 10th. It'll be coming in, and that way you can watch it. But when it starts to get really close, is when you want to start to take advantage of what it's asking of us, which is to not direct our energy outward, but to start looking inward for ways in which we can enhance our lives. Okay? So, and if you notice, I kept the charts for the AM time periods. So the house that they fall in now is the 9th house, okay? And rather than the 10th house. So it's kind of interesting how I did these charts. In April, everything was up here at the midheaven, but for May, then everything fell in the house prior, which is the 9th house, or the house of change. And I do think that when you look at Mars and Neptune together, well, let's talk about I have actually a lot of notes on this. I'll make sure I got the right papers. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with just looking at the combination of the Mars and the Neptune. Then I'll go back and I'll kind of explain everything. So I'm going to be jumping around here on my paperwork. Basically, you're not, as I pointed out, this is not a time to advance yourself, okay? But instead of like getting discouraged, because you're not going to be able to advance yourself no matter what, and instead of getting discouraged by what is going on or not going on, because that's probably more of what it's going to be. It's better if you can cut yourself off from those things that are causing difficulties in your life. So in other words, take this as an opportunity. Yes, we're all going to be a bit more sensitive. That is going to become increasingly more so as we get closer to the 24th of May. But with that said, use it instead to eliminate or cut out, at least temporarily, those factors in your life that are causing difficulties. Take a step back from them. Okay? So that is definitely something you want to do. It's also a warning here about not getting involved in anything that is dishonest or is misrepresenting in any way, okay, or subversive, okay, even if you're not aware that it's dishonest. Isn't that funny? You're going to still be running an enormous risk. So even if you think it's okay and it's not crossing any lines, it still might be better to avoid it. Because with Neptune, you might not know everything, okay? It says it's better in a lot of cases right now if we could be very objective in our lives. The more objective we can be, the better our decisions will be, the more rational they'll be. And one of the things that it talks about is like things like cutting your losses or being aware of how you can edit your life or prioritize your life. It's better if you can detach yourself and then look at areas, be more mindful of areas of your life where your ego self is so pinned to your expectations. Maybe take a step back. Look at yourself. Where is your ego tied to your expectations? And where can we make some of those cuts? The idea right now with Mars, because Mars is still about action, but the Neptune is asking you to act because you enjoy it. Act because it's about the action, not about trying to win. Do it for the good of doing, not because it's a competition. It's like being detached and objective allows us to learn more. And believe it or not, you could learn so much about your own lives and how your actions in your life have held you back and messed you up. That's what we could learn during these weeks of May. Okay, it's our eagerness to succeed that creates opposition. Okay, it's like we gotta, and in that it creates its own opposition. And this, during a Neptune transit, will show up in very subversive ways. Okay, and it'll happen in order to trip us up. Yes, because that's what Neptune does. This is when we should avoid drugs and alcohol unless it's absolutely necessary. Believe it or not, even medically prescribed drugs can have bad reactions for us right now. Our bodies are just much more sensitive and going to become more sensitive as the moon gets there. That's why we don't have a lot of energy when there's a lot of strong Mars-Neptune aspects. We just don't have it. We're really low energy. Okay? You have to avoid situations that are going to tax your physical strength. Because what happens is that when you tax the physical body, your immunity is not as good, and then you're more exposed to disease. Instead, it says it's important to use this time to understand self-care. And that's why I think it's a great time to start meditation practices and things that are much yoga practices, because they're healthy. They're healthy. And they're utilizing the energy to its highest good. This is about energies that make us feel strange. We are going to feel strange from time to time. We're just going to have these strange feelings, and they're just going to crop up. And as a result, we tend to be irritable and antsy, and we don't know why. Okay, but it's because here we go, that Mars energy. It's weirded out by the Neptune. Throw the moon in on this and whoa, okay? This whole thing can make us feel discouraged and incapable of doing anything useful. So people who already get stuck on what I call negative self-speak will find that those loops are much more readily available to us during this time. So we want to be very, very careful. Feelings of weakness and inferiority, here we go with Neptune Mars, okay, are going to be quite common. And some people are going to be prone to it more than others. So here we go with Neptune is an ego-denying energy in direct conflict with the ego-driven Mars. Mars is not as strong because unlike Jupiter, which does really well in the sign of Pisces, this is not one of the best, I don't feel, for Mars. It's too nebulous and intangible. Okay, so that's also something to remember here, that Neptune is going to outweigh, and I use that word weigh, okay, because it's going to have more bearing in this energy formation than that Mars, which is going to be somewhat depleted, I would think. Okay, so right now it's going to be very important to take actions based on fact and truth. So let's see what's going on next month. What little tidbits will be coming out in the news? Because I know there will be. All of this, all of the aspects that are going on right now in April and that will continue on. Well, they kind of lessen for a little bit and then they boom back again. Just changing of the guard is all it is. And it is about discovering of truth. It is about the clarity. But that clarity is going to knock a lot of people into states of confusion. Okay? Basically, right now, one of the things we have to be really aware of is that we're all capable of personal delusion with this transiting aspect combination. Actually, if you can, it's better not to start anything new right now. So again, this is the couple weeks in May that you really want to be aware of this. Be wary too of those who would take you for a ride and try to take advantage of you. Because that subversive action is not always just you, but other people might take advantage of that. Now remember, there's been a warning. Anyone doing that is going to be taking a risk, because the chances are you will be found out. So even if you're the one that just got betrayed or walked over or taken advantage of, yeah, you'll be able to at least confront the person who's done it. But I think that sometimes when the damage is done, the damage is done. Okay, so then it says, this is a great transit for charity work or anything that involves serving other people. Okay, so that's like really good. Again, if you're working for secret or selfish advantages, it's likely not to come to any good, because Neptune is also incredibly good at denying us. Okay, so you want to be careful of that. You also want to be careful of infections right now. Allergies will probably not be good. Remember, our energy levels are low. Sometimes for some people that is going to be the result of allergies. We're extremely sensitive right now. If you're somebody who is prone to allergies, look out. They're likely to be a real issue. Literally, April, May, okay? So that doesn't go away. So now, at this point, I want to pull up the other chart for us to look at. So this looked at this, okay? And we stayed with these 2 points. I do want to point this out. The fact that Sphinx is at 24 degrees along with Neptune, I couldn't resist. Sphinx is about questions. It's about not knowing everything. It's about missing information or having question about something or things not being clear. So not only is Mars in this situation weakened, but Neptune's got Sphinx sitting on it. So we really have no idea ultimately what's going on. I feel that way sometimes. Sometimes I feel that way to the good, though, because I know how much spirit will take opportunity to work with us. So let me check this out, and we're going to pull up the other chart. So I'm back, and we have our other chart, and here we are. Look at this. I love this. Okay. See, Mars is still in. It's out of play, though. It's 4 degrees away. It still has an effect. And the reason why is because, and actually it was the 25th. I think it's around the 25th. No, actually it's not. It is on the 24th, but if this is 8 a.m. in the morning, I figured this out. It's actually around noontime going to be conjuncting that. So you have to figure 1 degree for every, I think it's 2, or is it 3, or is it 4 hours? But anyway, that's how quickly the moon, it's only in a sign for like 2.5 days, okay? So I think it's like 4 hours. So literally 8 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours later, that moon's going to be even further. By the end of the day is actually, like when you get out of work, I guess, the end of the work day. It comes to a place where it's going to be, no, actually it is at noon, because, no, it would be the 27 degrees. That's right. It's 25, 27, and 29. And that will occur at the end of the day, about 5 o'clock in the evening. Okay. To be specific. Now, just continuing with this, let's look at what all 3 of these things mean. So I'm kind of going back to what I initially had skipped. Neptune deals with deceptions, losses, disillusions, unclear, lack of clarity. Deals with the future. Okay? That's really interesting, right? It relates to the unknown. It relates to inspiration, fog, haze, poison, gases, wind, denial, mysticism, imagination, spirituality, fringe science, creepy states, uncertain developments, liquid, and it looks like ice, but I don't think that's what it was. I think I wrote something else here and I can't even figure out what it was. But that just gives you an idea of all the things that are associated with Neptune. And I think the future is there because it's always unclear. It's always Neptunian. Mars is activity, action to act, impulse, the will, decisions, work, employment, energy, execute, resolve, impulsiveness, passion, inflammation. Now remember that inflammation, and Neptune is, here we go with sensitivities like allergies. Here we go. Mars, Neptune. Inflammation regarding like allergies, okay? Mars also relates to males, mechanical accomplishment. So it's accomplishments, but it's more of the tangible. And it's our occupation. With the moon, we have female, the people, the public at large, the hour, changeable things that change, functions of the brain, the emotional state, the glands, secretions, and liquids of the body. And one of the things that they do point out, and when I was doing my notes, is that there could be, for some people, issues that relate to liquid systems in the body. there are a lot of liquid systems. I know it sounds really funny because you're like, what? We are predominantly water. But think of bladder systems, urinary systems. Think of hydraulic systems. That's the synovial fluid systems. And particularly as you get older, you get dry in the joints. People get arthritis. So dry in the joints is when you don't feel like you have any hydraulic fluid there. So I'm just, throwing some things out there. And that would also involve charts that had Saturn there. I do want to point out that this Neptune, 25 degrees, is in a pretty close proximity to a sextile of Pluto. But the cool thing is Pluto's at 29 degrees at this point, but it is retrograding back. So there is another place where they are going to sextile. I don't think it's a bad thing because I think Pluto is about transformation and Neptune is the future. And so I think in many ways we're transforming our future right now. But those of us that are turning more inward during these times in May, for example, and we are working on our spirituality, we really are changing our future. We're becoming more aware, and I think that's a good thing. So one of the things it talks about is that overall, this is going to be a tough couple days. All right, so I'm going to start with that right away. Ultimately, what's going on during these couple days can lead to changes. Now, it can be constructive. Surely it is. But it's going to take changes. So initially, you got to make these changes. And if anything, it's only constructive in that it is pointing out where we need to make these changes. It's a time when we're all so sensitive, but it can make anybody just a bit more psychic during this time. So for a couple days, it stimulates our imaginative abilities and our intuitive abilities at the same time. So really, if you're somebody who wants to work on this kind of work, this is really the time to do it. It's also talking about how one of the issues that we have is that we won't always know what to do with this energy. So that's what people get antsy and a little bit irritable. So there's where that Mars will play in. It's almost like, it's like, how do we handle this on a material level? Okay. So how do we use it in a material way? Okay. Well, ultimately you really can't. And so there again comes that antsy, frustrating quality. Okay. We are gathering material though, but it's intangible material. That's the important stuff that we're doing right now. That's where it's good. So we have to be careful right now of misrepresentations and misinterpretations, even with regards to our own intuition. Sometimes what's really good is to write those visions down. Wait a bit. Especially if you're new to the game. Don't go out there and throw all that out there because, what if you are wrong? But on the other hand, you may not be wrong. So make a record of it. See how you do. Okay. The conscious mind is receiving feelings. And I talked about this even with regards to Mars being there. There's like feelings going on that cannot be easily rationalized. And because of the moon, we get confused with what our thinking is mentally with our emotions. We have to be careful of that. It could believe that we believe one way, but our feelings are actually pointing to another direction. Maybe our feelings are quite different. And so there's a confusion going on. Boy, is that ever a Neptune situation. And this is going to show itself up, particularly in things like love connections and love relationships, but also, I think, any kind of relationship, truly. And particularly because it is such an emotional thing. It's something that everyone is going to be exposed to on some level. Okay? See, basically, you go back to, we become fascinated with an idea. It's about the idea that can somehow kind of doesn't deal with reality or gets in the way of reality. Okay? And as a result, we don't see clearly. So that is what happens. It gets so confusing that now we're blurring lines. And so for a couple days, it could be rather confusing, okay? These are days when you could be attracted to someone who is completely inappropriate for you. That is one of the ways it can show up, okay? Especially if you're kind of really desperate to get into a relationship, you have to be extremely careful right now. It is a time when our unconscious tends to speak very loudly. But in order to understand these messages, we have to look at the symbolism and not take the words so literally. Did you hear what I said? I mean, think about that. Messages are coming to us via symbolisms, not always words. And that's something to really consider in all of this. Because nowhere in this is Mercury. Okay, this is Neptune and the moon at work. Okay, it's so different. On a physical level, we will have issues or can have issues and illnesses that come into our fluid system in the body. And I did talk about that. Can also signify a flare-up of drug or alcoholism, especially those people that might have a tendency toward that. Eye disease is another one that shows up, but I want to show you something. Eye disease is here, but it also is because of Astrea. But here we go again with, and not far away, at 27 midpoint is that Sphinx again, between Mars and Neptune. That's why I think I kept this chart. But look at the connection here going through Pisces with Juno, which is our partner, and Astrea. So there's unresolved issues within relationships, which may or may not be able to be worked out right now. And they're not going to be easily resolved. But it's also about what we see. Eye disease is actually one of the things that can happen. So be very careful with your eyes if you're someone that's prone that way. Because again, you would have to be prone that way. Okay, and also would have to hit your chart. The interesting thing is, this is hitting more charts than you realize if you look at this placement on a dial. Because remember, there are 4 axis points to this Neptune. Okay, and I will look at that in a minute. So right now, it is harder to deal with the real world issues because Neptune is bringing in all these illusions and disillusions, and it's really tough. Okay, right now it's better off if we can relate to what we're picking up, but still have a foot in the real world. So in other words, you still have to stay grounded, even if you are picking up something. If you can relate it directly to the real world, it's actually going to be better for you. Okay, so basically, it's best if we can learn the symbolism of the unconscious mind, allowing us more insight and wisdom, okay, as we deal with this transiting energy. So in other words, we can actually learn a lot through this whole thing. We tend to be such emotional sponges right now that picking up the moods of those around us, and this is anytime that moon comes to Neptune, we have to be careful of that. We have to be careful of the people that we're associating with. We have to be careful of the energies that we're picking up, okay? And we might want to even spend some time right now just sitting in our own world. And that's okay, as long as, again, we keep a foot in reality. It's okay. Go off in your own little dream world, read a book, get away from the real world, but do keep at least one foot in the real world and stay away, again, from drugs and alcohol. This is a great time for poetry and art. This is a wonderful time for the imagination, but it is not a good time for communicating with other people because any messages are not going to be very clear. There's a stronger possibility of misunderstanding, but most particularly being misunderstood. Beware also of self-delusion. Of course, I'm going to say that over and over again. Okay? Just be careful that you will feel irritable, that you're going to try not to fly off the handle at other people. And boy, that's going to be hard because that's one of the big challenges, again, through the next couple of days. But it lasts a little longer because it goes at a faster speed. So what I'm really referring to now is going to last a little while because even as the moon and Mars leave, actually still only a day. I mean, still not that far, but look how Mars is getting ready to leave Pisces. Well, the next sign that the moon's going to be hitting into is Aries as well, right? So avoid quarrelsome people, okay? And believe me, you might even attract quarrelsome people. So be really careful of that. It says that if anyone does challenge you right now, boy, you'll really stand your ground, particularly if it's unjustified. There's no backing down right now, but that's okay. Just realize that our sense of perspective is off. And this is going to make it tough to deal with some issues because it's hard for us to decide which issues are important and which ones are just trivial. And we tend to go all in for all of them. And some of them are not worth the fight. So, sometimes if you can, here we go again, stand back and be more objective. Okay. Basically, it's saying is that what makes this really risky is that we tend to act in haste or act too hastily in these situations right now. Again, this will only last a few days, but it says that if you don't use planning and foresight, you, again, are going to bring on more problems for yourself once this is passed. All we might care about is getting our own way. Okay, so be careful of that because that's also ingrained in that Mars energy. Okay, so we want to be careful. We also have to learn to calm down and be more compromising during these couple days. Okay, and on any issue, chill. Okay, you may not even know why you're angry. That's the best part. There's Neptune. Okay, you don't know why you're angry or you're feeling irritated and even irrational. You can even be snappish. Okay, and you'll be like, why did I just do that? So be aware. However, the anger could be related to something that happened even a while ago. And for some reason, something that's going on right now in those few days is triggering it. So be aware of that. It brings up things from the past. There's the moon, there's Neptune, there's Mars. Okay. It also says that we are likely to be more angry with those that are closest to us. So you're not going to get angry with the guy who's very aggravating in line at the supermarket. Probably not. You might even hold that in till you get home, and then you'll take it out on your partner or your significant other, because that's what we tend to do during those 2 days. So be careful of that. On the bright side, though, this energy does allow us to stand up for ourselves and fight for our rights with complete confidence. Yep. Just be careful that confidence doesn't become arrogance. There's a strong tendency with this energy to project our egos. Okay, so let me just, for a brief instant, because again, I'm trying to keep these a little bit shorter, let's look at the axis. So we already know that what we're looking at is around 25 degrees of Pisces or mutables, which means that if you're a Virgo, if you're a Gemini or a Sagittarius, I happen to have some Sagittarius at that degree, it's being affected, okay? Because that's a direct square or opposition to anything at that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw up my thing here. So if we do that, we're going to be, so Neptune is, let's go to Neptune. I believe it's right here. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it there. It doesn't have to be exact. Just, it moves back and forth. It's going to retro again. Not long till it starts retroing. And then it goes back over those spots again. So you get hit about 3 times usually. So that's one area. Now, if I'm looking at 25 degrees, we'll just say roughly 25 degrees, you would take 2230 away from that, and it leaves us at 230, right? 2230, and 230 equals 25. So we would go 1, 2, look at all the stuff that's there already, like Adamite. I think with the Neptune being where it is, and Neptune and Adamitas playing in this, some people will feel stuck or that there are obstacles there. And I think that when the clearing happens, we're going to realize that perhaps there really isn't. Okay. It also makes it very difficult with Sphinx and Neptune to get to the bottom of matters, which is very, very important to Admetus. We need to get to the bottom of things. But I do like that, the sun, okay, and this is May 24th, the sun is right there. So the sun is also going to be a factor for a day or so in all of this, which is really, really interesting. And getting and receiving help, which is such a great way to use that Neptune, is there. But with Adamit, it means help is delayed, help, there could be obstacles in the way of help. So I do want to bring that up. But you always have to look to the other end. So the other end of that is, here again, feeling stuck or you're being held captive over what feels like crap. There's doo-doo. So that's another factor. And just as when we were here, it equaled this factor. So, when you're looking at this stuff, so here we are, it's going to equal anything that's mutable at 25, anything that's mutable around about 2.5 degrees. Okay. And even maybe one, you can go a little further outside. And it is going to retrograde back. It's going to come all the way back, I think, to 23. And so you're looking at something that could go back to 1 degree. Okay. So a lot of people are getting hit, right? That's just mutables. All right. Then we have to look around 10 degrees of fixed. And we also have to consider, let me go back there, what's going to be happening here at, what is this, 17 degrees, 17, 18 degrees of cardinal. And those are just the people that are getting hit directly. If you live with one of these people, you're still getting hit. You see how that plays? That's why I really liked when I did daily astrology. And in some respects, I'm looking at daily astrology in a little bit wider of a scale with a little bit larger lens. But really interesting to do that, to look at planetary lineups and what it might signify for us, because I think it's important to our evolution that these lineups happen and that we experience these lineups of energy. So let me come on back. So I'm back, and I really like doing this kind of astrology, and it's interesting because I kind of went down a rabbit hole. I don't want to go any further. I was going to pull in some asteroids and all that, and I can make these things just way too long, but I just feel like sometimes we get more out of less, so I'm going to stick with that. But I do encourage anyone to really look at some of these lineups. It is really interesting. And if you have comments, I'd love to hear from you. But with that said, I want to first of all thank you for watching this video. And again, if you would like, share, comment, I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, until we meet again, I wish you all only happy reading.